Hello traders, welcome to the Daily Market Recap, a detailed review of the market structure and the key support and resistance levels in the S&P 500 E-mini. Today is Sunday, October 6th, 2013. I'm Bill Duryea with Follow the Bots. S&P futures broke down below the prior week's support and traded down to the next key support level at or near 1660 during this week's session. On Monday, S&P futures traded down to 1666 before auctioning back up to 1690 to retest what had been support during the prior week's session. The trade up to 1690 occurred during the overnight session. During the day session, S&P futures encountered resistance at or near 1686, 1684, which had been support during the previous week's session. The retracement was met with a sell response, and the S&P auctioned back down to retest Monday's low, making a modest lower low, trading down to 1663. During the pullback, the selling pressure decreased, buying interest entered, and the S&P auctioned back up off the low, and on Friday closed the session at 1684. On Thursday, the S&P had closed at 1675. During the overnight session, S&P futures traded down to 1668. Buying interest entered during the overnight session, and the S&P recovered. There was a minor sell reaction at Friday's open. The S&P traded down to 1671. There was no retest of the overnight low. The S&P traded above Thursday's high, auctioning initially up to 1681. There was a minor pullback to 1675, and the S&P ended the session at the prior day's high. For a detailed review of the market developments that occurred during Friday's session, we'll focus our analysis on a 5-tick range chart. Overlaid on this chart is a polynomial regression channel, along with several digital filters that we've developed to assist in determining the longer-term intraday direction, as well as to assist in reading the micro order flow. As you can see, overnight when price traded down to 1668, the digital filters turned up off the low, and the longer-term Kalman filter began to slope up as well. At the open of Friday's session, following the minor pullback to 1670, the digital filters initially went flat before the responsive buying entered, which resulted in price auctioning up to 1677. There was a minor pause at the 1677 price level, but the sell response did not occur until the S&P had traded up to 1681. Following the responsive selling, the slope of the digital filters turned down, and the S&P sold back down to 1674, 1675. At the close of the European markets, the sell programs decreased. Buying interest returned, and the S&P traded back up to what had been resistance at the prior day's high. During the mid-afternoon, the market was relatively flat. S&P futures auctioned up to 1686 before the computerized buy programs ceased executing to the buy side, which resulted in a minor pullback to 1681. Coming into Monday's session, the developing trading range is now reached the state of consolidation. The sell-off has found for the time being a stopping point at or near the September 10th low. Minor resistance exists up at the 1686-1688 price level, and resistance from the previous week is up at or near 1700. Above those price levels is the supply cluster that developed when the S&P had traded up to the multi-year high. Coming into Monday's session, we would expect to see S&P futures hold support. The minor pullback level is located down at or near 1675. The better support level is down at Friday's overnight low, as well as Thursday's low at 1663. That concludes our daily recap for the S&P 500 E-mini. If you would like to follow our real-time commentary, we invite you to visit us online at www.followthebots.com. Log on and join us some morning at the open.